Call the meeting to order. Start with roll call. Christina Sharp.
Here.
David Wallbrenner.
Here.
Jeremy Weller.
Here.
Brian Jones.
Here.
Becky Engel.
Here.
Next item, adoption of agenda and declaration of quorum.
So move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. And opposed? Next item, citizens speak. Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to address the board? If not, we will move on. Next item, employee recognition. I usually join Mike up there congratulating everybody, but I'm a little under the weather today, so I'll keep my germs to myself. But thank you, everybody, for your contributions.
Kate's going to join us and introduce our employee of the month. And what's always nice about this is just the ability to recognize our incredible staff as far as going above and beyond. And when we started this year, we had over 50 nominations for people to be recognized. And so it really is something that we have a lot of people that are doing amazing things, and we're glad that so many of you could join us tonight to celebrate this as well. So, Kate, I'll turn it over to you.
Our first nomination is for Matt Erlinson. Come on up. Mr. Erlinson is a teacher at Gateway High School as well as high school girls soccer coach and has been employed by the district for 2 years. He was nominated by his wife, Mrs. Erlinson. She says, I feel Matt deserves this award over and over again. The things that he does for his students are truly transforming their futures. He inspires and motivates students and players every day to reach their potential. Not only does he do this for his students, he supports his coworkers and helps them to be the best educators that they can be. He goes above and beyond serving on district and building leadership teams, while coaching and volunteering in order to provide better experiences for students involved in sports. He helps students outside of school time to improve their grades and complete work, while also providing necessities to students in need. He truly gives all of himself every single day. Congratulations, Mr. Erlinson. Next, we have Brett Fischels. Mr. Fischels is a teacher at Evans Middle School and has been employed by the district for 29 years. He was nominated by his wife, Mrs. Fischels. Mr. Brett Fischels is a one-man welcoming crew at Evans Middle School. He arrives early every day to do rounds, which means he walks the halls to greet other teachers and check in on them. He always carries a positive attitude in the mornings, cheering teachers on to do their best, helping them bring in heavy loads into the building, and connecting them with others so they feel they are well taken care of. Brett is a positive influence on Evans students as well. He does what he can to make sure every student he has feels slightly better than before they walked in his room. He also likes to make sure they are ready for high school after graduating 8th grade. Congratulations, Mr. Fisher. Next, we have Kayla Miller. Mrs. Miller is a nurse at Evans Middle School and has been employed by the district for 2 years. She was nominated by a parent. Nurse Miller is the most caring person I have ever met. She goes above and beyond for every student, always. I know she has real emotions attached to the students she sees once a year and the students she sees every day. I know coming to Evans as a school nurse is something new to her in recent years. She took everything she was given and put the necessary work behind the scenes to get the proper paperwork done for school grants and organizing everything for a successful school year. I feel like she gives it her all day in and day out and goes above and beyond for Ottumwa School's students, staff, parents, and our community. She works so hard. Nurse Miller's nominator would also like to mention that she was voted by our community as the #1 nurse in the Best of Southern Iowa. Congratulations, Nurse Miller. Thank you so much. Next, we have Chris Jackson. Mr. Jackson is a custodian at Liberty Elementary School and has been employed by the district for 9 years. He was nominated by Steve Zimmerman, Liberty principal. Chris has been instrumental in getting Liberty ready for the 6th grade transition this past summer. Mr. Jackson helped orchestrate a huge internal movement of the current Liberty 4th grade team, along with getting our new 6th grade team members to their new homes in Liberty. Chris and his team spent countless hours moving and cleaning, then moving again, and making sure all of our staff had adequate time to prepare their rooms for the new school year. Not only does Chris attend our daily custodial needs at Liberty, he makes sure each Friday our building is ready for multiple professional development sessions. It is evident Chris takes great pride in his work and commitment to Liberty Elementary. The Liberty administration and staff would like to thank Chris Jackson for everything he does to ensure Liberty is always clean and ready for each and every day. Thank you, Chris. Congratulations. Next, we have Yvonne Johnson. Ms. Johnson is the food service director for Ottumwa Schools and has been employed by the district for 34 years. She was nominated by her colleagues. Yvonne Johnson is one of the most dedicated people I have ever worked with. She is a great boss and will help you with anything that you need. Yvonne goes above and beyond to make sure that we can be successful in ensuring our children are fed. She dedicates a lot of time every summer to help our kids in need get meals all summer long, including planning, organizing, and gathering volunteers to make sure our students are fed while not in school. Yvonne did a fantastic job with the centennial celebrations. I heard from many people that there was something different for everyone to participate in. I had the opportunity to help her with some of the centennial celebrations, and it was fabulous. She puts her heart into it all, and she truly loves Ottumwa Community Schools. Congratulations, Ms.
Next item, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, board priority, student achievement. We have a 6th grade transition informational update.
Yeah, Morgan, tonight, I thought the board would enjoy hearing an update of how it's going at Liberty. We have a group of teachers as well as administrators going to give you an overview, and you'll have a chance to ask questions afterwards. I will just give you a quick synopsis from my perspective is that we've had a really good start to Liberty. I am very pleased with how it's going from my perspective, and I want to thank these individuals for your hard work in making sure that it's gone very well, so we appreciate that. So I'll turn it over to you, Steve.
I am Steve Zimmerman, principal at Liberty Elementary.
I'm Heather Platten, assistant principal at Liberty.
My name's Libby Burdett, and I'm a 6th grade ELA teacher.
Carrie Swartz-Busales, and I am a 5th grade teacher.
All right, this first slide is just a general overview of the location of teachers at Liberty Elementary. And as you can see, we did a lot of planning and preparation at this point to make sure we are maximizing our space and making sure that teachers' needs were being met. And so what we did is we took our 4th grade community that was in the location where 6th grade is now and moved them down to where currently was 2nd grade. And then that allowed us then to have a common area for our 6th grade classrooms, and that also went over into the 5th grade community a little bit across the hall. But as you can see, the red rooms that are down the hallway also are 6th grade classrooms. So we're able to pretty much have our sixth grade work in the west wing of the building, and that's been really great. The only other time that they are down in the other end is during lunch and then also gym time. But with the weather we've had, most of the time they've been able to be outside for PE class. So it's worked out very well, and what's really nice about it, and Carrie may speak to this, being next to our fifth grade teachers, because essentially half of the kids that we have attended Liberty last year, so they're able to keep those connections with those fifth grade teachers, and that's been great and beneficial for some of those students for this transition time. So what's been going well, I just want to start off by talking about our routines and expectations that we have. Prior to the start of the year, we are a PBIS school, a Positive Behavior Intervention Support School. So that basically talks about how we want our students to act and in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in the restrooms, before and after school. So we put those expectations in place. And our sixth grade has really done a great job of adopting those expectations and teaching those expectations. So the first week of the school year, we spend majority of our time just reviewing that with students, modeling what that looks like, going to those places and talking about what is proper behavior. And our sixth graders, teachers embrace that, and that has been beneficial as a building whole for our culture. Then also establishing those morning routines. We have our sixth graders wait in the gym, and their advisory teacher will come down and greet them, then take them back for that advisory time and walk them down the hall. And that's been great in building those connections. And in the morning, the cafeteria, we have mixed grades and they're eating breakfast. That's been great. And so we really have enjoyed that. And then another thing, the students really enjoy switching classes every 47 minutes. We feel like that has really had a positive impact on our student engagement. And they like the fact that they get to have class with some of their friends and get to meet new people as we brought in all the elementaries together as one. So that has been a positive impact, and that came from the students saying that.
A couple of other things, when we met as a consensus group to move the sixth grade into our Liberty building, one of the concerns was how are students going to manage their materials and things, and I've been really pleasantly, and so has our staff, we got some feedback from our sixth grade staff as well, that they're managing their backpacks with them very well. The fact that we didn't have lockers or a specific space has gone just fine. We have made a few adjustments. Maybe if they go to the restroom, they're not taking all their bags in with them and we just leave them out in the hallway. So we've adjusted to some of those routines and things as it's needed, but otherwise students are handling that really well and we're getting good feedback from teachers. Students are really enjoying the 10-minute recess time after lunch. It's when you really recognize that sixth grade students are kids. And working at Evans for the last 14 years with sixth graders, it's really evident that that extra time that they get to kind of run around, and they're truly playing games. They're playing volleyball, they're playing kickball, they're playing soccer, they're climbing. So seeing that interaction has been a positive thing as well.
So the hallway monitor and the student resource officer, I like that we put additional adults to develop relationships with. I've used Kurt as a reward for a behavior student, and he's connected him with youth football, and so just it's gone really, really well to have somebody like that knows things that I don't know that are going on in the community, and building those relationships with kids that are somewhat troubled, but they view him as a safe place to go.
And then our instructional rounds, we've only had one round so far, but with that and our collaboration and building professional development, it's really nice to see like how the third through fifth grade teachers do it. And then it can turn around and they can see how we run our classrooms. And it's really comparative to all of us. So it's really the same.
Part of that, part of building in that system for teachers as well as building in supports for students, teachers have embraced working together to provide interventions in both math and reading. We've had a lot of collaboration with teachers to do that. At first, teachers were a little unsure of what that collaboration was going to look like for instruction. But as we're observing and our instructional coaches are observing those teachers, they're really embracing that and enjoying that time together and helping students. We've also created, what I really enjoy is at Liberty, we have tiered teams set up already for how we can support students at Tier 2 and Tier 3. We recently looked at the referrals for sixth grade that we're already receiving, and we've already established about 31 students that we're going to put into small groups. We're intervening with our counselor, with associates, PE teachers, so it's not just teachers that are helping to intervene, it's our whole staff. And they're really starting to build relationships with those kids that have been identified of having additional need.
Then again with that too is knowing the fact that we already knew half of the students in our building, so we were able to intervene quicker because we have already established those relationships with those kids.
The last thing we'll touch on is, and I brought this up at DLT, is that it's really, really nice to watch Steve and Heather calibrate the discipline. And so like when they have a specific issue arise, they talk to each other and they come to a consensus on how they're going to handle it. And so then you don't have another student doing the same thing and getting a different punishment or a different consequence. And that's really nice, something that we haven't had even at 3-5 at Liberty before. So that's been really good. And then I said to Steve, I said I was totally against moving sixth grade over to Liberty. And it has not been without mistakes and without flaws, but did we do the best thing for our sixth grade students? Absolutely, yes. So I would definitely tell you that was the right decision.
Right. Just some slides from some things that have been going on at Liberty. This is Josh Dreen. He spoke last week to our sixth graders, just talking about incorporating some of our PBS expectations and some goal setting. And then he had the opportunity to meet with our sixth grade student council after that. And then he went and spoke at Evans Middle School. So that was great to bring him in, and he mentioned how respectful and stuff our students were when he was talking and how they listened and felt like they were engaged with the activity. So as Carrie said, there have been some challenges, and one challenge is some hallway transitions, and we have really worked on that. We're getting better as the students are more familiar with their schedules, and also making sure that we understand which side of the hallway we go down, and so that's been has been improved. Then the end-of-day transition, we have a lot of bodies moving down the hallway at the end of the day, going to the single point of door number 1 to get rides home or get on the bus. So half of our sixth grade and most all of our fifth grade will go out a north door and go down the sidewalk and go out the front of the building that way. That has helped with that movement of bodies down through the main hallway at the end of the day. Another area has been just with the increased number of staff, just providing room for the PD meetings, those type of things. So we do that in the cafeteria. That's also where we have our students wait for buses. So on those days, we will just be moving them into the gym and making accommodations that way. And then sharing space. Our library and our art are basically in the same room, and that we were really concerned how that would work out, and that has been pretty good. I feel like they're able to provide the instruction they need and also share that same space. So we worked through that as well. So it's been a great transition. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm glad to hear you talk about the discipline, because I talked to a former student that told me there had been some fights, and she's a little scared to be there, coming from a smaller school to a larger school. And I actually talked to that same student's parent, and she's been a little concerned. But to hear you say that you are addressing those discipline issues, that makes me feel better. And then another thing that I had heard, staff being able to leave by 3:30, something about all the cars and everything getting out of the parking lot. Is that
Getting out
addressed?
is not hard, it's if you want to come back in.
Oh, okay.
Getting out is really not that hard. Because
And what about-
I've left for meetings, but one time I left and came back, and that was not easy.
Okay, what about in the mornings? Do you have to get there relatively early, so you beat the parents or anything to get into your parking?
So in the morning, it's a little challenging, just like it is in the afternoon, but, you know, I have been in pretty good contact with Mr. McGrory regarding the time. So it's basically when school is out, within about 20 minutes, the parking lots are cleared. So it's been great moving those buses to the other side. We have opened up that north parking lot. And as parents are getting aware of that, they're getting in and out. So that has been good.
To speak to the referrals, we've had approximately 70 referrals so far this year. About 45 of them have been with our sixth graders. A lot of what we're noticing is that hands-on mentality, which is not new to sort of that middle school age group. But within that, what I really enjoy at Liberty and having the sixth graders there is where we're doing a lot more restorative work with that. For example, if I have a sixth grader, whether it's Mr. Zimmerman or myself, we're always working with that student to do a reteach of what we're doing in our advisory lessons or throughout our day, or going back to our PBIS lessons. So I like that we're bringing in that restorative piece, as well as obviously have to going to the punitive a little bit. A lot of what we're seeing with those referrals, though, aren't necessarily in our building. There's things that are coming from outside of our building. There are things attached with social media issues kids are having on their devices or on the bus. So, and then they're bringing it to the school. But what we noticed is the communication with parents is that we've had the feedback that we've been handling that pretty well.
Steve or Heather, one of the things I think I know I was hoping for is that, you know, preserving that childhood a little bit longer, another year longer, and things like not being able to use cell phones or not. How has that gone?
We really have not had any issues with cell phones
Yeah,
being
good.
used. Kids know that when they come in the building, they're to be put in their bag and shut off, and we really haven't
Yeah,
had
no, I think I've maybe
issues.
had 2 students, if in, you know, and it really wasn't a big deal. They were just reminded and it was put away and it wasn't a big deal.
Good.
And I haven't heard feedback from teachers that they've been in the classrooms.
Good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have an action item on the 2024 travel program trips.
Morgan, I just want to mention something about our travel program. One of the things I'm excited about is that they're bringing back the Black Hills Adventure. And the amount of trips, just so our audience knows, is St. Louis will be for 6th graders this year. Chicago will be for 7th graders. East Coast will be for 8th graders. Discovery 21 will be both for 7th and 8th grade this year. And then the Black Hills Adventure will be both for 7th and 8th grade as well in the summer. I've always been a big fan of the travel program because I think it's life-changing for a lot of our kids to have that experience. And I think the other thing that I really respect a lot about the trips is that any student that wants to go on a lot of these trips, they can raise the money themselves to be able to afford to go on the trips. So it's open to all students, which you know, obviously some of these you have to qualify for academically or something, but most of them are open to all students, and I think that's just a real plus for our kids. So tonight we're asking if the board would approve these trips for this year.
So Mike, I've had some questions from people that aren't, like, they didn't know this stuff was coming back or what it is, or like, is Black Hills Adventure the same thing as Great Western? And like the East Coast, is that the same as the old DC trip?
Yeah.
So do we have plans to put this together and get it out to
We do,
families
and
so that they know that it's a thing?
Yeah, we do, Morgan. That's kind of why we wanted to get them all approved right now, so
Okay.
we could get that information out right away.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Well, I'll move to approve the educational trips.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, board priority financial stewardship. We've got a bunch of action items. The first being a architectural agreement.
Dave?
Yes, sir. We have to enter in an architectural agreement with Faith to redesign our doors for our central office. Part of the, it's a new process that we have to follow with the state fire marshal. So for us to put up a wall at the middle school, we have to have an architect kind of design it so the fire marshal can approve the plans and allow us to do that. With the city person retiring, this is the whole new process for us.
An architect for a door. What's that?
Just go through them all, or?
Let's do, let's see, we got central office. Yeah, let's run through them all, and then we can approve them all.
Part of the central office parking lot, Ferry Street parking lot was in need of repair anyway. It was partly asphalt, partly broken up concrete. So part of this bid is to replace what was currently existing, and then also to expand that parking lot to the south to add some additional parking spots.
Keep going. You can go all the way down through.
You want me to speak to this? I can, yeah.
Yes.
I saw that look, David. The next item that we have in front of the board is to do a simulation, basically, of what we have in the front of the high school and do it in the back of the high school. Some questions you may have is what is the cost? And comparing the cost to what we did in the front is, one thing they found out in the front is there was a lot, probably more to that project than they maybe realized. A lot of cement work, taking out cement, a lot of that. So I think that was $19 a square foot. This is $21, which I still think is incredibly reasonable. And our plan would be, if it gets approved by the board, is that we would start this project still this year yet. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know.
So that's taking all the concrete that's currently there.
Yeah.
And basically replacing it with the same thing that's on the other side, the same
Yes.
pavers, same system.
Same system, yeah,
Okay.
right, yep. And it'll also have, what comes along with it is the logo that's that we have in the front too, the O, yeah.
So you go to flooring now?
The next career campus flooring, we're looking at doing this over Christmas break. We would have an epoxy floor with a light speckle, and this would be the main area to include the entryway and back to the restrooms. So then we wouldn't have any tripping hazard, or the cleanup would be a lot better after events.
And then curtain?
One thing, long lead time on our curtain. They're looking at 6 to 8 months on this. We're like replace the current curtain, the original curtain, in June. So we're requesting to replace that the Evans Auditorium curtain.
Okay. So I'm looking for an action item on items A through E right now.
Make a motion to pass action items A through E.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item is a modifiable allowable growth for special education.
John's going to join us for the next two items.
Okay, the first one we've got, we've finished up our annual reporting for the state. So we do a certified annual report, a special education supplement, and an annual transportation report. At a future meeting, we'll dive a little further into that, and I'll kind of give everybody a summary of where we ended up and kind of a review looking forward. So more of a comprehensive financial review. This piece has to be done earlier, though. Special education funds are a little different than all the rest of the monies the state gives us. We have to go through a separate process and itemize all those special education receipts and how they were spent, and then our expenses in line with what the state gave, Medicaid funds, that kind of thing. So we do, it's called Special Education Supplement. And at the end of it, if we spend more on the delivery of special education services than the state formula provides, they say we run a deficit. This is fairly common. We've had a couple years where we've run a surplus, which is fairly unique. I ran a little bit of numbers last year. We had a small surplus. Out of the 300 plus districts, only 45 ran a surplus. The other 282 ran a deficit. So what we did this year, is kind of looked at how we were coding our special education expenses to make sure that we were putting everything there that was that matched how we deliver our services. So when I say that we ran a deficit this year, it was about $672,000. It wasn't so much that we added a great deal of additional supports, as that we looked at the supports we were already providing and classified them to be a little heavier delivery of special education students. And this was especially the fact at Pickwick. The way we were coding our associates was not putting as much of their wages to special education, when in reality, they're all touching special education students and they're all providing some services. So we made some modifications there. So when you see that we went from a surplus to a deficit, it wasn't so much that we added a whole bunch of extra staff, although we did add where needed. But we reviewed how we were classifying the existing staff to make sure that it more accurately aligned with the percentage of their time that was spent with special education students. So going through all that, we have a deficit, and what the state allows us to do is submit a request for spending authority. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean that they give us more money. It just means that they give us the permission to spend additional funds to provide the services at a level that is needed. We run a deficit, and the mechanism they use for that is a cash reserve levy. So when we set our budget in the spring, we can go and say, well, we ran $671,000 of deficit in special education. We're allowed to ask the community to fund that through a cash reserve levy. We have not in the past because we've had a surplus or we haven't needed it, and this does not guarantee that we will do so in the future. We're looking to keep the property tax rate stable, but we always ask for permission. Whenever the state allows us permission for spending authority, we ask for it, and that it's at our discretion come budget time whether or not we need to go through with it. So that's what this is, and I can answer any questions about that special education stuff. And like I said, we'll go into a little more detail at a future board meeting, but welcome any questions at this time.
So does the cash reserve levy put it into a different fund where we can do different things with it?
No, it's strictly general fund, and all our special educations are out of the general fund, special education expenses. So it's mostly staff. We're a staff business, so it's mostly salaries and benefits. And the state hasn't changed the weighting for special education students for decades, and it's insufficient. And that's very apparent when you look at the number of districts that run deficits. Like I said, 282 out of the 300 plus districts in the state run a deficit. I did a little more comparison just in our group, so similar size districts. And in our 5 up and 5 down group, we're the only one that didn't. And we kind of feel that it's not because we didn't incur those same expenses, we just maybe weren't classifying as much that other districts are. And that is more accurate as to what kind of time staff have to spend when there's special education students involved. So it's likely that we'll continue to run deficits just because the state hasn't done any changes with that, and we're seeing a lot more students, and I'm sure if you talk to teachers, they'll tell you that some of the special education students are coming in with some pretty heavy needs, a lot of additional staff support. We're seeing some that have some, 2 different staff people that have to be assigned to a single student, and the mechanism for funding from the state provides additional weighting, but nowhere near enough. As soon as you have to have one-on-one support with a student, you're in a deficit situation. So the more students we see like that coming in, the more it puts pressure on us. And unless the state changes that weighting, we're not likely to see any relief. But we do have this mechanism, so we'll ask for the authority, and then come budget time, we'll determine whether or not we need it to move forward and keep providing the services at that same level.
So John, it's money that's going to be coming to us though, right? I mean, the deficit won't continue to grow. It's money that we're borrowing money that's actually going to be coming to us. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's more so that the state says and I'll use round numbers. The state says here's $10 million for special education, and that comes through the weightings. So we look at our count of students, they apply the weighting mechanism to it, this much per student, and we'll say that generates 10 million. And then we say through the course of the school year, delivering the services that the IEPs require, that we spent 10.5 million. They say, well, we don't have any more money for you, but you're welcome to go to your community and add 10 cents to the levy to make up and get that extra $500,000. Okay. So they basically kick it back to the local community to give them that option to have additional tax levy for it. But like I always warn, it's not automatic. It's something we haven't needed it in the past, and we're hopeful that we won't need any kind of increases in the future. But they give us the option.
Okay. So thanks.
Any other questions for John? If not, I'd be looking for a motion. Not everybody
I
wants.
I'll make a motion to approve the modified allowable growth special education action item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration of sealed bids and resolution directing the sale of school infrastructure, sales service, and use tax revenue bonds.
Okay, and I got this one too.
But this is John again.
It is. You bet. It sounds like me, doesn't it? We did a bond sale today, and this was one that the board has taken a couple actions on previous meetings. And I'll just give a quick update of kind of the steps to this point. So last year, we held a public hearing when we did a bond issuance, and we said we're going to issue up to $30 million in bonds for all our capital projects. We did $10 million last year. This is the other 20. We go through and had a rating, so S&P calls me up. I send them a bunch of financial information. They kind of take a look at it. They make sure that based on the projected payment schedule that our sales tax reserves are going to be sufficient to cover this into the future. So they gave us back a report they maintained. We get an A+ rating. A+ is always good in my book. Maintained our existing rating on the old bonds, so they were comfortable with the payment schedule we had projected. So we took bids today. Electronically, we received 5 bids, and the best bid, we sold $19,995,000 worth of bonds. They shaved $5,000 off for some fee reason, but I said that works fine. And the interest rates on those bonds is between 4% and 5%. This is quite a bit higher than we'd had 2 or 3 years ago, and as everybody knows, the interest rate environment has turned less favorable when you need to borrow money. But we still use those figures between 4% and 5% to generate a payment schedule. And when we run that out over the life of the bonds, which will run through 2044, we still have sufficient funds to cover the payment schedule along with our existing offerings without crossing over a threshold. They have a coverage ratio they apply to it. 1.2 is the minimum. I think the lowest we sink is 1.36. So we're still above the metric they use for that. So we still have funds that we use for our annual things, and then we can cover this debt. I think the next step is there'll be one more meeting in October where we finalize the sale, so I'll bring back another resolution, and then we get the funds. We plan to use these funds to finish up the Dama project and also begin on the OHS competition gym, and then also help fund the start of the OHS renovations. So these bonds are on tap to do that, and these are sales tax revenue bonds. They're funded by the 1 cent sales tax penny. So these are not anything that will translate into property tax increases. They're funded by the monies we're already getting. We're just going to use some of it up front here to get some projects started. So, any questions?
Do you see the need to sell any more?
I think we have one more round in the future within a couple years we'd looked at, but that is dependent on future projects. So the OHS renovation, when we kind of come back with some of the numbers, we had projected that there'd be another 10 to 20 in the future as a couple of our existing ones drop off. But it's really dependent on where we go with the planning. And we're not really there yet as to determine how much those projects are going to cost. So there'll definitely be further discussions, but it's possible.
Is there any worry of the interest rates getting so high that it becomes less attractive to do it?
I have
Or is that a ways off?
It's a ways off, and I think the interest rates have stayed higher than I expected longer. But I think everybody kind of agrees, and when you talk in the financial circles, is that lower rates would be advantageous for our government. So therefore, at some point, we'll probably see lower rates.
Right.
And that's also something we look at as we have this offering and the one before. The rates were 4 to 5, which 20 years ago might have been okay, but we've gotten used to very low rates. So we'll watch these as time goes on, and our financial advisors through Piper Sandler, they do a really good job of looking to say, hey, they've dropped, it's worth it to do a refi. And we did that with 3 bonds several years ago where they're all sitting in the ones and almost less than 2%. So we'll watch that, and if we do get to a more favorable rate environment, we'll definitely jump on that. And that would help going into the future as well.
Yeah, I remember those refis. The 5%, it's like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, yep.
Any more questions for John on that?
Make a motion to pass the sealed bids and resolution directing the sales of school infrastructure sales.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Thanks, John. Superintendent report.
Thanks, Morgan. I've got several things for the board tonight. My first is the school board election, just to give the board an update, but also mainly for our public to know where we're at with their school board election. The deadline was last Friday at 5. We have 4 seats open, and we have 4 individuals running. And those 4 individuals are current board members. And so we do not have anybody running that's not a current board member. And I appreciate you deciding to run. I really do appreciate that. So I just wanted to, we'll put something out on our Facebook so everybody kind of knows the status of where we're at with the election and so forth. High school remodel, as John kind of alluded to, we're starting the second phase. And part of that second phase is obviously the tennis courts. It's also the competition gym. But we also are truly committed to remodeling the internal building of the high school. And so we met with several different departments. We're going to bring in an architect to do what we call visioning with those different departments. And they range from CTE, family and consumer science, wrestling. Science is going to be a big one for us, and that's going to be one of our more costly ones because anytime you redo science labs, they're always very expensive. And then also looking at remodeling administrative offices, and our welcome center is kind of a secure entryway there as well. And there'll be additional things that will be part of that second phase, but those are some of our big things that we'll be doing in our second phase. So we will probably be coming to the board, I would say probably mid-year with some recommendations about that second phase as far as moving forward with some of those. The third thing I have is the the Hall of Fame event we had Thursday night. I just thought that was a really nice event. We recognized 8 people, and congratulations, Dave, on the honor. But it was just a really nice evening where you could see how much it meant to them to get inducted into our Hall of Fame, and how much pride they took, and the people that they impacted that when they were introduced and so forth. So I wanted to congratulate each of them. Also, we had, which this is exciting for us, we have 4 associates that qualified for a fellowship through the University of Iowa. It's a mental health fellowship where they'll receive professional development training, and then they'll also be working on some modules for professional development. And they can earn up to probably in the next year and a half about $8,000 during that process. So it's really nice for our people to get that type of training. It's all paid through the University of Iowa. So that's exciting. The next thing I have is just kind of a DALMA building update. We couldn't be more pleased with the progress that we're seeing at DALMA. We're certainly on pace, and I would say ahead of schedule. This week, you're going to see they're going to be pouring the floor. Start pouring the floor, and that will probably occur over the next week and a half. I think by mid-October, you'll see the building being totally enclosed. And that was our big thing, is that if we can get that enclosed before the winter, then I think I don't have a lot of concerns about meeting the deadlines we need to meet. So that's exciting that we've just had really good weather with that. Auditorium updates, we're updating in the process of updating both auditoriums. Today, they just started with the new seating in the high school auditorium. They have a majority of the seating in Evans. And the seats that came from the high school to Evans, they look great. I can't wait to show the board what I think it's amazing what our Evans auditorium is going to look like, and our high school auditorium is going to be fantastic too. So we're excited about that. Those projects should be done, for the most part, done probably in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. So The other update I thought the board would be interested in is a greenhouse update. We closed on that Friday. I think our ag teacher slept there this weekend, I think. She's very excited. We're excited, and this week, we've had several meetings, but this week we'll be kind of codifying what do we want to accomplish the remainder of this year and where we want to go in the next 5 years. So at some point, we'll come back to the board and we'll update you as far as the progress of that. It's really exciting to have that facility, but like we've talked about as a board, it's also really important that we utilize that facility at its full capacity. So the last thing I have is I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue that occurred Friday night at the halftime of our football game, with us having to postpone that at halftime, and then also just addressing some of the student behavior we're seeing at some of our football games as well. So I thought I was trying to kind of gather my thoughts, and so I just kind of put together something, and then I'll open it up. If board members have any questions or concerns, I'd be glad, certainly encourage a discussion on this, because I think it's an important issue. So as our community knows and our board knows, is that at our homecoming football game this Friday, we really did have a distressing incident. It occurred when gunshots were reported in the vicinity of the game. The safety and the well-being of our students, staff, and attendees were paramount, leading us to make a difficult decision to cancel the game at halftime to ensure their protection. Moving forward, we're going to take a proactive and collaborative approach to enhance safety measures in response to the incident. This Thursday, we're going to conduct a tabletop exercise involving law enforcement, secondary administration, and our also dedicated security team. This exercise will simulate various scenarios to test and kind of refine our emergency response procedures, and also ensure that we have a swift and coordinated response to any potential threats during future events. I also want to address, as the board's probably been hearing, some of the, well, I guess the only way you can characterize it, some poor student behavior recently at some of our football games. First, we recognize that we've had some student behavior issues that need to be addressed and corrected. To this end, we're going to look at reinforcing our code of conduct, outlining clear behavioral expectations, and increasing the presence of security personnel. Moreover, we plan to engage with students and parents, fostering a culture of respect and responsibility at these events. And so some might, if you're listening in the audience, you might say, boy, that's a lot of administrative speak. What I'm saying is that we know it's a problem. We will come up with a plan to make sure we address it and take care of it. And we expect more from our students. I do want to highlight, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, is that our high school, I want to give them a shout out. Our high school student body has been outstanding. We haven't had a lot of problems with our high school student body. So we have a lot of positive things with our student body at our football games, but we know we have some things to address. And what my plan is to put together a plan with my secondary people, and I'll bring that back to the board and share it out with you. And we're fortunate, we only have one football game, football game left, and it's before our next board meeting, so you'll have that plan, and you can kind of look at it, and you can give me feedback on what you think about the plan. I think in closing, I just want to thank our secondary administration and our law enforcement for their commitment to ensuring our people feel safe at activities and enjoy their event experience. I hope that our community reflects on all the fantastic things that are occurring in our district or have occurred in our district over the past 3 years and are currently taking place in our district, and do not allow these recent events to taint their perception of all the progress our school district is making. In no way am I wanting to minimize the issue Friday night. It was unfortunate, and we'll learn from it, and we'll make sure that we have a plan in place moving forward. But we're also very proud of what we've accomplished here and where we're going, and I think there's a lot of positive things going on in our district, and it's hard not to take personal that when you have something like this, you have to address it. You know it's important to our community, but all I'm asking probably from our community is to look at it in kind of totality and look at all the things going on in our district. And I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. And also keep in mind that we just have when we look at our aggressive discipline, one of the issues we've had at some of our football games has been aggressive type fighting issues. We will be really proactive to send a strong message that won't be tolerated. But I also want to point out, when we look at our aggressive discipline in our buildings at the secondary level, I feel really good about what those stats look like. They're really good, and we're not seeing a lot of aggressive discipline at either Evans in the high school. So it's just my way of saying, that it's a problem at events. We need to make sure we address it, but there's just a lot of other positive things students are doing in both of our buildings. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board and just open it up for any questions board members might have.
So Mike, if a student is involved in a fight, I guess at any event, and so I'm assuming that they are, at least for a certain time period, not allowed to come to an event? And so I guess my question is because it's a lot of people in and out, a lot of different places at that football field, how do people know who can come in and who can't?
Right.
Or how does our staff or whoever works the gates know that?
Yeah, we talked a lot about that today, Brian, and we've got a couple things that we need to shore up on that. Is that one is that we may have like a middle school administrator send a kid home, and nobody else may know of that, and so we're going to coordinate that where it'll be funneled through so everybody knows, and then we can make sure the consequence everybody knows if they're not allowed at the next event or any events in the future. We've had some of that too, where we've just said you can't come to any events in the future. So we're going to try to do a better job of coordinating that, and then also put one of our SROs we're looking at the gate, so the person taking the tickets doesn't have to, maybe address that issue. We have some, people that maybe feel a little more comfortable doing that. So we have a list of names that aren't allowed, and so I think our goal is to do a better job probably with that. So
Because you have 3 ways in there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about the administrative speak, I was guilty of thinking that. Because when you talk about like strengthening a code of conduct, well,
right,
the behavior that I've heard about already violates even the loosest code of conduct.
Right.
So to me, it's less about the code of conduct versus the discipline for the conduct. And I know I've talked with some people, already you're out of all the games if you fight at a game. So there's no quick or easy fix or we would have it, right?
Right.
But I do think it's something that we need to pay a little closer attention to. I kind of like the idea, going to a sporting event or an extracurricular event like that should be, it's not a right, it's a privilege that you have. And if you're not doing the right things at school, if you're getting suspended at school, you don't need to be at these events after school either. So I don't know if as an administrative team, you guys have talked about that kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
If you've got behavioral issues while you're in school, then you don't need to come to the stuff after school because there's even less supervision there and there's more bad influences there. And I think maybe we could take a proactive look at it that way. But yeah, and like you said, it's unfortunate because we've been working so hard the past few years to crack down on these issues in school. And then when you have events like this and it's in such a public light and you've got community members there and it should be a proud moment for the city to celebrate the school. And then you have one bad apple really create a bad instance in a very public setting. It's disappointing. So it is something I think we need to focus on and do a little more thinking around.
And Morgan, I agree with everything you said. One of the things that you touched on is when I talk about, ramping up our code of conduct, what I'm probably speaking towards is my experience has been when you want to change student behaviors, there's several different ways you can do it. And one is through the code of conduct. And what I mean by that is like scenarios where you have, what is, if you take away certain things, is it meaningful to the student? So my example is for some, if you took away dances, that would be devastating. For others, not so much. So we need to probably start looking at what really matters to our students. And you can lose those privileges if you don't meet a certain expectation we have. And I think we could do more of that and looking at how we ramp up our code of conduct, because when you're representing our school as well, like you said, Morgan, it represents an activity. So we have our athletes to a higher standard, our code of conduct. Why wouldn't we have our students at these activities? So right now, what we do is, if you get in a fight, it's the same consequences as if you do it in school. Well, maybe it doesn't need to be that. Maybe it needs to be more extreme. And because you're representing the school, like you said, it's a privilege to be there. And so I think we're going to look at those type of things too.
I would say the one thing that I like, and I didn't know they did this, is so when apparently the kids, and maybe it's adults, I guess they didn't tell me, but the kids cannot leave and come back. If they leave, they're supposed to stay out. I guess I didn't know. So, I mean, which they don't need to be running in and out. So I'm sure the kids don't like that, but I think that's a good thing. Because that might keep some of them from actually leaving and going trouble somewhere else. But, even though we don't want it there, but I didn't know that till the other night when I was walking out and seen that. So they tell them.
Yeah.
Mike, did you say you do think that we'll have some changes or some ideas before the last game? 'Cause
we will, Christina, and so that'll be part of our proposal that the board will be able to review and kind of give us feedback on. But I think we'll come up with some really good ideas of how to address this. And we changed things up the second game quite a bit, and we didn't have a lot of problems at the second game. But it was really frustrating to have homecoming and have that type of behavior, and we just can't allow that in the future. So.
And then I assume whatever we put into place for that will be like the October 9th meeting applies to the winter sports. Because I feel like once you get inside Evans, it can feel a little bit even more tense sometimes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I've learned with like basketball, or when it's inside, that what leads to that intensity somewhat is the opposing crowd. Maybe you can hear more when you're inside and so forth, and so I agree. I think, and one of the things we've talked about is we've added a lot of security measures, and one is adding a security person to oversee all of our things, and he's going to be looking at having his security people at more of our events as well. And so, because one of the things that we need to probably look at is we have quite a few people that are helping with supervision, but do we have uniform expectations, and do they know what they can do and can't, we don't want them to do. So I think if we get more people trained and they know what the expectations are, I think we'll have more continuity with it.
Okay. And then what kinds of things is the district able to do for students who do these things that don't go to our school? Do we usually just get the officer involved in those cases, or? Yeah,
they don't, honestly, a good example of that would have been the vandalism we had at Evans. One of the students wasn't a student in our school district, so they were charged and had some pretty severe consequences legally. So that's the avenue we'd look at if they aren't a student. We would look at that if they are a student too, but yeah.
Mike, when you talk about taking away things that mean something to kids as consequences, we approved the trips tonight. I don't know if we already do something in the realm of withholding them from being allowed to go on trips, but I would definitely support something like that.
Okay.
And then I would be supportive of even requiring middle school and elementary kids to only be allowed to attend with a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've turned into a daycare for about a couple hundred kids every Friday night, and that starts part of the issue. And then with everything that went on Friday night, some of the first things you see on social media is, oh my gosh, I dropped little Billy off there. What's going on? Well, go find out,
Right.
Part of the problem is at home, and that's a whole, I'll digress, that's a whole different subject, but I would definitely be supportive of something like that even.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that too today, is should we require parents, should we? And we'll look at all those things. One of the things I always try to avoid is punishing the masses for the actions of a few. And so I want to be calculated as far as, we'll get the resolve, but I also don't want to probably penalize students that shouldn't be penalized. We talked about how when we become a 6-7 building and an 8-9 building, maybe 6-7, you require everyone you have to come with a parent. That does make sense to me, potentially. In 8-9, we hope to develop, where those would be non-middle school issues. You're hoping a little bit more, but I don't disagree with you, Jeremy. Is that I think we need to look at these things as privileges. You can lose them, and we have to keep that in mind. Anything else? Questions? Well, I appreciate the discussion, and like I said, I'll come back with a proposal for the board to look at and get your feedback. That's all I have, Morgan.
All right. Next item is board member topics.
Morgan, I just have one thing. I just wanted to echo real quick on what Mike said about the Alum Hall of Fame banquet. It was very nice, very well done. And listening to the people that come and speak about these alum and these athletes was very heartfelt. It was really nice to see, and a thanks to our cooks, I guess, our program that done the cooking. They done a very good job. So it was a really nice night, and it was really nice listening. And congratulations, Dave.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, I forgot the FCS students and then Mandy. They did an outstanding job with the meal. Thanks.
If there's nothing else, next item is adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Meeting's adjourned.